1, 2, and 3. Hey, Dr. Reddy Weller, I have got a bone to pick with you. So many people have heard, can't you just rub this, doc? That'll make me feel so much better. You're a chiropractor. Don't you do massage or acupuncture? No, that's not what chiropractic is. And I get, asked to go to certain seminars, but many of them I do not get invited to because I don't play in the gray. There is a rule and a standard, such as like baseball has 3 bases and home plate. There are rules and standards within the chiropractic profession. And those rules and standards are based on nerve system function. How well the nervous system's functioning. At one time we were all this size. Little baby. At one time we were all this size, I promise you. As we grow to who we are today, I think of all of the different things that have occurred since we were this size and then growing to be a little bit older and older and older. And here we are today, and yep, what has the body gone through? Heck, most people take care of their teeth better than they do their spine. So even as a chiropractor, there are hundreds of different types, by the way. Like attorneys, there's hundreds of different types of attorneys in their niche or specialty. Same thing with chiropractic, believe it or not. This is true. We are the box of chocolates. I say that all the time. Again, I'm concerned about the spine, but I'm really more concerned about what's inside of it, because what's inside of it is what keeps us alive. Many people have never really given that any thought because we just assume that the body's working the right way and it develops into X problem. Hey, did you hear about so-and-so? They just got diagnosed with this. Or Mr. So-and-so just had a heart attack. Or Miss So-and-so has a brain tumor. Or what? We grow into these things, and why do we do that? So here I am at 23 years old, and I meet this gentleman that transformed my life. He was the biggest stepping stone that kind of helped me along the way of learning my why. And as I'm growing into this thing called chiropractic, I didn't know what it meant. Chiropractos, it's Greek. Adjustment done by hand is what that means. It doesn't mean adjustment to fix neck pain. It doesn't mean adjustment to fix discs, herniations, high blood pressure, diabetes, irritable bowel, cancers, tumors. I can go on and on. There's tens of thousands different named diagnoses. And know what they have in common? An abnormal functioning nervous system. That is the core premise of all. That's the common denominator, an abnormal functioning nervous system. So when you hear somebody say, I went to a chiropractor, I tried it didn't work for me, my response is what kind did you go to? There's hundreds of different types of us. What kind did you go to? And how often were you getting your spine adjusted? See, for me, less is more. I believe the body's made to take care of itself. So if I were to plant a seed and put dirt on it, water it, what else do? We allow it to do its thing as God has intended, just like our body. However, as chiropractors, they want to water the plant 3 times a week. Nope, wrong answer. You don't want to get adjusted. You want to hold your adjustment for a period of time. I know this is going to rub my profession the wrong way, but you, the listener, you need to understand that when your spine is neurologically sound, then and only then are you living at a different heightened state where thoughts become clear, function, your physiology changes. All of these things occur without you thinking about it when the nervous system's working the right way. I liken it to kind of, let's say the Weather Channel. I use this often. The Weather Channel, constant updates, which means the brain tells the body and the body tells the brain. And when the brain and body are communicating with one another, safety pin if you will, if they're communicating the right way, then the brain is sending a signal, the body's receiving that signal, and then the body responds to that, and then tells you what's going on, brain, because I'm going to send the signal back up to you and let you know that I got that message. But what if that message was distorted? As I always say, abnormal messages make abnormal things. So if I were to water a plant and come back a week later and that soil is still moist, why would I water it again? Same is true for your spine. If your spine was adjusted, well, first let's do this, was analyzed and there was a location, somewhere along the line, there was something structurally off. And when the spine is structurally out of balance, something's going wrong with the spine, it's going to affect the nervous system. And when it affects the nervous system, that nerve is going to, like an extension cord, plugging into an organ, and that organ or body part, tissue, gland, cell is now functioning abnormally because there's an abnormal nerve supply going to that area. Makes sense? Yeah, made sense for me. It's why I wrote a book called It Just Makes Sense. And when the nerves, all of these nerves have a job. They all go to a different body part. And if they all go to a different body part, are all the body parts working the right way? I don't know. Nor do you. If we go to a dentist every 6 months to get our teeth checked, oh, and you have a cavity, we need to fill it, or you need a root canal, or we have to extract it, or you need a bridge, or a crown, whatever those things are, we've kind of grown into that's normal. That's just the way of life. Yeah, I got this. Oh, well, here I am. Not normal. It's not normal to have cavities, even though I've had plenty, by the way. But what about our spine? If we can have tooth decay, we can also have spinal decay. Nobody's ever given that any thought. Very few doctors in my profession talk about that. They talk about let's fix the spine, or let's make it do this, or let's give it motion. I'm not concerned about the spine. I'm more concerned about what's inside of it. It's your nervous system. Ready? Let's go down the rabbit hole even further. I'm not necessarily concerned about your nervous system. I'm more concerned about what's inside the nervous system. That's where life comes from. That's where all things happen good for our body. That's where life comes from. This is where this life-given entity that I call this God-given spirit, force, intelligence, wisdom inside of each and every living cell and being came from our Creator. And it resides within our nervous system. And when that does, it sends signals to every cell, tissue, and organ of the body. But it's got to come from one central location. And it does. Every nerve in your entire body meets at the base of the skull. It's the most vital and the most primary area that you need to be checking. Soon as the baby is born, you need to send them to a chiropractor that focuses on nervous system function, primarily at the base of the skull and or the entire spine. Making sure that the spine is functioning neurologically sound is the best gift you can give your child or even yourself. Think of your body like a car. Maybe you're 10 years old, 20, 30, 40, 50. It doesn't matter. Isn't every car better off tuned up? Sure it is. And so what are you doing to tune up your car? Once a month. Because we have this thing called stress. Thoughts, traumas, and toxins. We all deal with this garbage. And now we've got electrical stressors from all the chemicals in the air. But we have stress. And our body has to be able to adapt to that stress. And if it's unable to adapt, it's overcome. And when it's overcome, we grow into something. That's how it works. I can fall down and maybe cut myself, but not break a bone, but I can fall hard enough to break a bone. See that stress, how the body adapted? So here's the thing though. The same intelligence that recognizes if I have a cut and we clean it off, put a Band-Aid on it. Band-Aid doesn't heal us, right? But we put a Band-Aid over to cover it. And then in time what happens? The body grows this webbing of tissue, right? Forms a new skin bond underneath it without us thinking about it. And then it pushes the yuck out of the way, called a scab. And when that does that, when the scab's ready to fall off, we have brand new pink tissue. We don't sit there and go, shh, I'm healing right now. I'm healing right now. We don't think about that. It does it on its own. What's doing that? It's your nervous system. Same intelligence. If you fall down, God forbid, and break a wrist, you put a cast on it. Cast doesn't heal you. You heal you. How do you? Well, do you really heal you? I just said that out loud. I'm like, hold on. Do you really? No, you don't heal you. Something else is healing you. This is why in 6 weeks, regardless of age, you have a healed bone. That's how it works. You break a bone, I don't care if you're a day old or 100 years old, typically in 6 weeks, that bone is going to heal. It's just how it rolls. And so if that's happening that way, something is making that happen without us thinking about it. You can see me, hopefully, or you can hear me. And maybe you're stewing a little bit like, this guy's a little nuts right now. However, you're interpreting that into thought. While at the same time your heart's beating, pumping, hundreds of gallons nonstop all day long. Thousands even. It's craziness. You have a new liver every 6 weeks. Where's the old liver go? Isn't that a great question? I love that question. We have new blood every 4 months. I remember being in school. I was young and naive, of course, and I'm learning this thing. I raised my hand and I said, if we have new blood every 4 months, I don't menstruate. I'm a male. Where's the old blood go? Class snickered, but it was a legit question. Where's the old blood go? We don't know. The body has some sort of scientific way that we guesstimate on how this works, but the body's been doing it without us thinking about it. We have new skin every 35 days. I can go on and on with all of the different factoids. Look them up. Go to DuckDuckGo and look them up. Stay away from the other one. And just go to DuckDuckGo and look up body factoids. And it's like, wow, this is neat. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Know who knew that? Your body does. The intelligence, the wisdom, the God inside of us. Yep, I said it. There is a God-given intelligence inside of us, and it knows what to do and how to do it. How do I know? Because when the sperm and the egg united, it formed just this beautiful cell. And that cell had everything, that blueprint of who you are and what you are today. And what happened? It did something nuts, craziness. It split. And now there's two of those cells. And then it split again. And then it split again. And then it split again. And then 9 months, there you were. You came from one cell. And then you were formed. It formed a heart, lung, liver, kidney, spleen. Where'd your skin come from? I mean, where'd the heart come from? Where'd your brain come from? How did that happen? We don't think about those things. We absolutely take them for granted. It's like, I don't know, it's just how the body's been made. Oh, hold on. We have to give credit to where credit's due. If this wisdom is inside of us right now, and I so know it is, and it wants to express and communicate with us, we have to understand then, this is hard to digest, that we have two brains. We do. One that we think with, and the other one that keeps us alive. Because right now, as I'm talking to you, we're having this conversation. All of these millions of other functions are occurring without us thinking about it. Something is in control of that. That's your nervous system. So this is why you should see a chiropractor that focuses on nervous system function. Not as excited about, those people that, God bless them. Oh, God bless them. I'm just going to say people. I don't even want to call them chiropractors that tape microphones to people's spines. Or they're using these big straps that are yanking people's heads, this barbaric move. Not good. I don't care if I'm stepping on any toes. Your spine is not a toy. You live in this. If you take care of an infant and you nurture it and take care of it, right, and you do everything you can to make sure that the baby's okay, why aren't you doing the same for you today as an adult? You should. How are you eating? You wouldn't give the baby a Diet Coke. You wouldn't give the baby a cigarette. Heck, I'm going to have to go down the vaccine road. That's another game. And so when I think about all of the things that we do for a baby to take care of it, why wouldn't we do the same as an adult? Why don't we do that? And you should. That's the point of being on fire for your life, on purpose, excited for who you are. Because when there's an intelligence that wants to communicate with you, that wants to lead you and guide you, this spirit called life, you get excited, you get on fire for life. And you get pumped up. And you feel like, I'm on purpose right now. Like, I know my why. I'm pretty darn excited. I want to stay healthy so I am not a burden on others. Now, I say that all the time. You are the most important person in the world. Because when you take care of you, you can then take care of others. It's that easy. However, we get caught in this rat race called life. And we live in a world of I heard somebody say the term comparanoia. Right? It's true. We're paranoid as we look and compare our lives to others or other things, or even to our old self. Heck, I used to have hair at one time. And so we can't live in the yesterday. You can only just be the best version, i.e. that car that needs tuned up every day. You make sure that the air is okay in the tires so you make sure the alignment's okay. There's your structure. You make sure all the plumbing's okay, all the fluids in the car. You make sure that the electricity's okay, all the fuses are working the right way. See what I mean? We have all of those in us. We have structure, we have a plumber, we have a carpenter, contractor, electrician, all inside of us with a master controller called your nervous system. And it just so happens, when I look at the spine, here's your skull, and so when I look at the spine and the upper cervical spine, the uppermost portion of the spine is the most vital area in the body. It's the weakest area of our spine because every vertebrae in our entire spinal column locks in position. All of the vertebrae stack and interlock. I'll share more podcasts down the road. But they all interlock. And when they interlock, they're protecting the nerve. That's how God created it. Protecting the nerve, exiting the spine. Sometimes the vertebrae can shift out of position due to a fall, trauma, bump, pathology, some sort of sickness. The bones decay. They erode. Remember tooth decay, spinal decay? The discs herniate. And when they do, that little jelly pushes into that nerve and I get that burning in my arms and legs. But if I can have burning in my arms and legs, I can have disc herniations anywhere in the spine that control my heart, lung, liver, kidney, spleen, ears, eyes, nose, throat, right? They all have a job. And so if they all have a task, these nerves, wouldn't it make sense to have your spine checked for neurologic integrity? Of course it would. Of course it would. To me it does. It's changed my life. You're talking to a guy who struggled terribly in school. I mean, terribly in school. I graduated high school at a 3rd grade reading level. Yeah, aren't you glad you're listening? I had a 10 on my ACT. I was that kid, 1.9 grade point average. Detentions through the roof. I was that bouncing off the wall, go, go, go kid. I guess maybe I'm that now, just more of an entrepreneur. And I struggled terribly with having this relationship with God. Didn't have any. At 17 years old, I developed into having cramping, diarrhea, irritable bowel. So from age 17 to 23, I had IBS. It was a good time. And so with all of that and struggling, emotionally and focus, I would open a book, close a book. I don't know what I just read. It wouldn't sync. There was a fog. There was a disconnect. I wasn't illiterate. I knew what the words were. It wouldn't sync. Something was wrong. Why? Have you ever had a fall? Sure. I broke my nose at 5 years old on one of those merry-go-rounds. You see those parking lot, the kids are whipping the merry-go-round, spinning. I leaped on it when my grandmother was with me. I remember it like yesterday and smashed my nose. Still to this day. No air goes through that nostril. Yeah, since 5. And so, wham, that was a big trauma to my head on a rotation. Well, fast forward a year, now I'm 6, and I've got a banana seat bike with the flag on it, tassels on the handlebars. Yeah, I know, I'm aging myself a little bit. So I'm cruising on this thing. I let go of the handlebars, and I'm like one of the first kids riding no hands. I'm like, woo, look at me go. And the handlebars spin. I flip over the handlebars, whack, take out my front tooth, cracked it square in half. Wham, that was another trauma to my spine. Yeah, I remember in 5th grade, I got jumped by a bunch of kids that held me down and used my head as a soccer ball. 3 kids did that to me. I don't know how it didn't kill me. So it was rough in downtown Chicago at one time. I have been beat up by plenty of people as you just live that way. I've had plenty of fights. I've had 8 car accidents. I got really heavy into skateboarding at one time. How many times you fall? How many times you see a skateboarder wearing a helmet? They don't. We don't. That's how we roll. Maybe we're on a half pipe, but on the street we're jumping these ramps and jumping over cars. Heck, I remember in the city when we had the garbage cans with the steel garbage cans, these big 50-gallon drums, and we would light them on fire. Wouldn't tell our parents, right? But we're in the alleys. So we light them on fire, and we find a board. We beat this big plank board, and we go, and we're like Evel Knievel, and jump through the fire. Well, if you're not going fast enough, that front tire falls into the little fire there, and you flip over, and you whack, and you hit your face, and you scuff yourself, and you're not going to tell your parents because you're not going to tell them what you do because that was a pretty stupid move. Boys do some dumb things. I'm not saying girls don't get hurt, but boys do some really stupid things. I was one of them. Yeah, I had to take a pause there. There was a little glitch where that ended, and I saw my camera light on up, and I didn't want to play the editing game. And I think about all of the things that I've done to my body. And that's just me. What about you? Think of when we were this big, and so we're crawling, and we're standing up next to the coffee table, and so we're we think we got this thing. And we turn and, whoa, we lose our balance and whack, we hit our head on the coffee table. Have you ever had that done? You can't remember that. Nobody does, but that's happened. And what about riding the bicycle or falling off? Or maybe somebody's riding a big wheel. Remember those games? And so somebody's riding a big wheel as you're walking and whack, they hit you as a kid and you fall down. All of these things add up. But we never think about the birth trauma. That's structural. Or the chemical things that maybe we're doing microwave food or aluminum-filled deodorant. Chemical-filled food. Microwave food. All the processed chemicals that are in our food as preservatives. All the sugars that we're addicted to. Maybe alcohol. Granted, I like my cocktail here and there or a glass of wine. They add up. And sometimes our body can adapt to those stressors, sometimes they can't. But the point of this whole story is that there are thoughts, and that's usually the biggest stressor, by the way. The grudges that we have, or yesterday's pain, or somebody that said something to us and we can't let go of that thing. Been there? Sure you have. Done that? Sure we have. I'm very much an empath. And so when I find myself worrying about things or concerning myself of other people's problems, I start to own their problems. I cannot not help that. So much so that I have a fault of I want to control that issue, and therefore people feel less than. Sound familiar? Maybe you have a narcissist in your family. I know that's a hot topic today. It's unbelievable. Maybe you're watching the news and you're just afraid of what the government's going to think. Maybe. Those are emotional stressors. My mom said this, my dad said this, my teacher said this, my boss said this, my friend said this, my spouse said this. Those are emotional stressors. Chemical stressors, I just listed a bunch of them. And then physical stressors. Falls, bumps, we call them traumas, but those little mishaps that all add up. And then our body, nervous system, has to adapt to that. This is why it's so important. If there's something wrong with your system, then what are you doing to make sure it's working the right way? This is where a chiropractor comes in. I know you think chiropractor, neck and back pain. Chiropractic has nothing to do with neck or back pain. When I mean nothing, I mean zero. Heck, 80% of my practice, people with anxiety, depression. Why in the world would somebody see a chiropractor with anxiety, depression? Yeah, that's a whole nother story. However, if you're dealing with an issue of any type, then there's got to be some sort of neurologic component to that. And if there's a neurologic component to it, what are you doing to make sure that you're functioning the right way? Again, when you hear the term chiropractic, I beg of you to understand this, that there are hundreds of, there's 114 chiropractors within a 10-mile radius of my office. And they all think they're right, including me. The difference is there's got to be some sort of objective way of gauging the nervous system. Not subjective, subjective being the doctor. Like, oh yeah, that really feels out over here. Have you heard that before? Yeah, I know. This isn't a gauge. Your hands are not a gauge. They're a tool, they're not a gauge. There's got to be a gauge, a way to analyze the nervous system. And there is. I co-authored a book called Infrared Thermography. I'm a big fan of infrared thermography. I use an instrument that I scan the spine. I run this up the spine, and this lets me know if there's some sort of neurologic compromise within the spine. I'll get into these whole technology later. The point is, as a chiropractor, there needs to be an objective, not subjective, but objective gauge. Let me define that for you real quick. Oh gosh, I feel really warm right now. Ooh, somebody feel my forehead. Somebody kiss my forehead, right? Moms used to do that. And so you kiss, my mother still does. And so you feel the forehead, and what happens? Wow, yeah, Eddie, you really feel warm. Okay, good. What's the number? What do you mean? Well, what's my fever? Well, I don't know, but you really feel warm. Okay, so that's not a gauge then. Maybe you can feel things, but that's not a gauge. So what do you use? Oh yeah, a thermometer. So if I use a thermometer, St. Louis, or if I go to Egypt, or if I go to Australia, it doesn't matter. A gauge is a gauge. There should be similarities between each person using that objective, not subjective, objective gauge. Hence the chiropractor. Chiropractors have a plethora of different ways to adjust the spine. They do. And they all think they're right. And many of them are. However, there needs to be a science attached to that way of adjusting the spine. See, philosophically speaking, we all believe that the power that made the body can heal the body. That's one of the philosophical standards. How we do that is to analyze the spine, adjust the spine, and step back really, and allow the body to do what it's supposed to do, which is neurologically restore itself and therefore adapt to any stressors that we have. And so the body can then go from a degenerated state to a regenerated one. The way we do that is with infrared thermography. If you're not using this scanner, you're guessing. I'm sorry, I know I'm stepping on toes, and this isn't an Eddie Weller story. I didn't invent this thing. I wish I did. I didn't create these principles. I wish I did. I didn't create the rules and standards in chiropractic. And I'm thankful that I didn't, because boy, it's complicated. But however, I follow them. And therefore, there are tons of chiropractors that I know in my sphere, if you will, that follow these principles in chiropractic, philosophically, artistically, and scientifically. Without that, then there's the gauge. What I mean by that is, without that, if you do not have a gauge, and you're just on the fence, and you're just going, what am I doing right now with chiropractic? Because many chiropractors charge for that pop. You heard that. I just popped a knuckle. We have knuckles, if you will, in our spine. They're just joints, and nitrogen gas leaves that joint when you force that joint to move. That's all that is. Chiropractors charge for that pop noise. I did not adjust my finger just now. A joint just shifted, and there was some nitrogen gas that left the joint. In about 18 to 20 minutes, nitrogen gas will be back in that joint, and then you can pop it again. That's how this works. So when you adjust the spine, you're like, boy, I feel looser. I feel great, doc. Woo, you're the best. And then you feel 2-3 days later, oh, I need to get popped again. Why is that? You become a crack addict. And so when you become a crack addict, it releases an endorphin. Many of them believe it. But you're stuck. See, the body, if it's really made to take care of itself, it's so made to take care of itself. And if it's not made to take care of itself, then what are we doing on this place called Earth? Because every species, outside of humans, no species worries about what about this condition or how about that, or my mom had this, my dad has this, cold and flu season's coming, I get allergies in the spring. No species thinks about that but humans. True story. And so when that happens, we start to have this programming that we're living in lack. We're not good enough. We have something wrong with us. You need objectivity. I can't stress it enough. Without this gauge, I'm sorry, chiropractors, you're guessing. You're absolutely guessing. This isn't an Eddie Weller story. This is a chiropractic story. Because there are people outside of our office that are struggling, looking for an answered prayer, going, I've tried everything. Can you help me? And if you believe, I'm telling you, if you believe that the power that made us can heal us, and the nervous system that lives within our spine, if something's wrong with the spine, and you can adjust that vertebrae and release that God-given intelligence within that nerve to go to that part of the body that's in a dis-eased state, a dis-eased, not diseased, dis-eased state, then it starts to rebuild itself well again. It took me 8 months when I was 23 years old. It took me 8 months to go from an abnormal functioning nervous system to my spine holding its adjustment to 8 months later, the irritable bowel that I was suffering from was restored and healed. And here I am today, feeling great. Do I get stomach aches? Do I get headaches? Do I get fevers? Do I get neck pain? Sure, I'm as human as everybody else, but they don't last. It's not like the irritable bowel thing. And I know that many people have tried many different things. I beg of you, if you are suffering with a certain condition, if you're just struggling and you just don't know where to go, what to do, and you're just going, I've tried everything. No, you haven't. No, you haven't. I promise you. There is a way out of this thing. I call it upper cervical care. And yes, it's a strict discipline of chiropractic that focuses on the uppermost portion of the spine. It's very specific and very tailor-made to you. It's not again, Eddie Weller story. This is a chiropractic story. This is the life-giving story. That this intelligence, when I mean this intelligence, watch this. If here's the sun and here's the earth, I love telling this story, and the earth's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, it's craziness. And if the earth moves closer to the sun, we'd burn to death. But if it moves further away from the sun, we'd freeze to death. But the earth is at a perfect distance from the sun in order to sustain life here. Whatever created this, created us, and if it can figure this out, don't you think it can figure out high blood pressure or diabetes or headaches or cancers, tumors? I believe that. I believe that. I believe that this wisdom is smarter than we can ever fathom. That whatever created the cosmos created us. That whatever created that blade of grass to grow created us. That whatever emotion or worry or fear or doubt that we have, this intelligence understands, and it wants to do the best it can with what we have to work with. Remember the car analogy? Your body needs tuned up. And when your nervous system's working the right way, tell me. Tell me what God can fix. I'm telling you, your life will never be the same. Have your spine checked. Ask your chiropractor to implement infrared thermography. And by doing so, you relieve your worry or your doubt, and you put it on the back burner knowing that my chiropractor has a gauge and they know that my spine's working the right way. More importantly, that my spine can hold the adjustment for a prolonged period of time. And when it does, miracles happen. That's how this works.